Hey, it is your buddy, Peace and Harmony with you here today. Much love going out to all the beautiful empowered harmonizers. And we are zooming in and focusing in today on a great viewer question. And that is, how do you know when you have healed? How do you know, really kind of like when you're on the right path? What I would call positive, orderly direction, or pod thinking, behaving, feeling, decided, and becoming. So we're going to zoom in and focus in on some sort of experiences or epiphanies or insights or milestones that you might be able to recognize within yourself to help you gauge whether you are on the right track, whether you're getting it right. And before we get started, I just want to give a super huge shout out to those of you who have recently donated to the channel. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you so much for your contributions. Thank you so much for your generosity and your well wishes. It's really viewers like you that give me that warm, good feeling and keep me inspired to keep producing the content and keep it flowing. So thank you so much. And absolutely positively, if the channel has been a positive resource for you, please do feel free to donate at the PayPal Donate Now button here on the homepage at the Peace and Harmony channel. And we had a viewer who asked if I can put a link in. I don't know if I can do that, but I will certainly try. Thank you so much. So we're going to zoom in and focus in on how do you know if you are on the path of healing? How do you know if you've made a breakthrough or if you are making a breakthrough? How do you know if you're making progress? How can you kind of check in and get a gauge, basically take your temperature, so to speak, whether you're on the right path? So it's very interesting because the stage of learning goes through a specific cycle. And we've addressed some of this in previous videos, but we're going to do a quick recap. So it's to understand that you go through what is known as unconscious incompetence. Unconscious incompetence, meaning which you don't know that you're in a state of being manipulated or being abused or not knowing. Basically, you're oblivious to the facts. So this can occur when you're an infant, 2, 3, 4. Basically, you're unconsciously incompetent. In other words, you don't know. You don't know what is going on. You're in a state of basically oblivion. You don't, your brain is immature. Or perhaps before you've learned a skill, before you've learned to type. You were unconsciously incompetent, so you didn't know that you didn't know something. Then you go into a state of conscious incompetence. Conscious incompetence, which means you become aware that there's something that you don't know that's causing you an impact or an experience, a discomfort or a sense that you need to change. And this can be the experience of when you're slightly becoming aware of or coming out of the love bombing stage, when you're aware of the fact that the relationship is not maybe sour, but there is something awry, but yet you are not quite fully aware of the fact of what you need to do to change. So you're consciously incompetent. So you're aware of, I'm a little bit over my head, or there's something I don't know how to handle here. I don't know how to cope with this person or this experience. And so this is where a lot of the suffering occurs. And then you go to the stage of conscious competence, which means you have to deliberately or with effort learn the tools, the skills, and begin to repeat and rehearse these again and again so they become really set up and fixed, and you're in basically the learning stage. So the tools that we discuss here, the astromations, the detachment phase, the learning to observe, the going no contact, all the sections of the recovery journal, the recovery date that we discuss fit into this place right here. The conscious competence, which means you have to have deliberate thought. So we're going to go into and expound upon these here in just a moment. And then you go through the cycle of unconscious competence, which basically means you learn the tools, you're practicing the tools, you're becoming more adept, and then basically you don't have to use as much effort to incorporate the healing tools in your journey. They're becoming part of you. They're who you are. You are healed. So let's basically break these down a little bit here so you can see how you evolve through these stages. And you might need to watch this this video several times. And we're also going to develop it here on several segments if you all wish. So when we talk about how to know if you're healing, it's to understand really how all these stages are affecting you in the healing journey. So unconsciously incompetent, we're going to use this as a descriptor. So this basically describes the state when you are not aware of the fact of manipulators. You're not aware of the fact that people have personality disorders. You're not aware of the fact that there could be quote-unquote bad people, people with malintent, people who seek to control and overpower you in ways that serve them and that do not serve you. In fact, their own power oftentimes is a direct correlation to setting you back towards put in a manner that is disrespectful or not in your best interest or is not, supportive of you. So especially those people who are manipulative, they tend to act out of jealousy and insecurity. And so they will mistreat you, be bossy, be pushy, be maniacal, be insultory, derogatory, or withholding, not giving you the love, not giving you the guidance, not giving you the information, support, and selfless nurturing that you need that would be in your best interests. However, there is withholding or a lack thereof. So we're beginning the lack cycle. We're beginning the beginning of the rift. We're beginning the manipulation, the disconnect, the big gap between the connection in the relationships, and then this becomes typified or internalized, and so you then begin the stage of the gap or the void, especially of self-esteem and self-love, especially unconditionally, gets set up in these stages. So unconsciously incompetent, which means you're going through the manipulation, but you don't know better. You don't, you're too young. Your brain is too immature. You're a teenager. Even in your young 20s, people blossom and grow at different stages. So that is the stage of where the love bombing, you don't know, you can't hold it against yourself. There's nothing that you've done wrong. As I say, you've brushed up with this type of person, with this sort of experience. You didn't know what you were encountering. You didn't know that they had your malintent. You were looking at them from the outside. You had not experienced this before. And then becomes a stage where you're moving along, which becomes you're consciously incompetent, meaning you're aware of the fact that there is something wrong here. There is something of a sense of suffering that you are experiencing. You're experiencing the fact that this person is a little mean. They're a little derogatory. They're insultory. They are exclusive of you, meaning they are not inclusive. You feel a sense of isolation brewing. You feel a sense that, this person perhaps is acting a little bit domineering. Let's call it bossy. Let's call it manipulative. Let's call it acting out of, pathological self-interest or a need to be in the limelight, to be in the spotlight, to be better than. So these are your opportunists, your controllers, your narcissists, your psychopath, your sociopaths, the people who are blatantly feel that this is how they navigate and how they get a foot up. In other words, how do they overcompensate for their own, what they perceive as their insecurities or inadequacies or the faulty parenting that they might have had in their youth. And so it's always an adaptation. And oftentimes they are opportunists. They are people who will use opportunities to get into your psyche and cause you to feel less than. So what is a quick example? The psychopath as well as the manipulative narcissist will get into your psyche, the operative system, when you're going through your natural organic thought process, and they will interrupt the pattern thereof. For example, you know how to tie your shoes. The narcissist or the psychopath will say, "You didn't forget to tie your shoes, did you? You didn't forget to do this, did you? You didn't forget to lock the door, did you? You didn't forget to shut the door. You didn't forget to turn the lights off. You didn't forget to close the refrigerator. You didn't forget to turn the stove off." And this happens even when you're in your 40s and your 50s and your 60s. These are the people who, basically want to be the controllers. You didn't forget to pay the bills when you've been paying it for 30 years. These are the people who get into basically the what you know very well, your unconscious competence. In other words, what is, naturally going smoothly for you, which you know how to do, where your competence is, they'll get in and destroy that. So they'll create an insecurity where there is none. I think there's an expression called, ripping somebody another whatever it is. Perhaps this might be what that is, but they're creating a problem where there is none. They're trying to get you to resonate and focus in on a negative or a brainwashing or a gaslighting, trying to make it appear as if you don't know, that you're not observant, that you're not on top of things, that you're not in control, when in essence you are. But they will have this brainwashing or this gaslighting. You didn't, forget to do da-da-da when, or, did you lock your doors? When you've been locking your doors for 50 years, 60 years, and they're trying to make it seem as if you have a problem with that, or that they need to remind you when you don't need this at all. So they're trying to create a need where there is none. This is where they get into your operating system, and then the core shame-based comments. Oh, you're so vain. Oh, you're overreacting. Oh, you're too needy. Oh, you're too clingy. Oh, you've got the wrong political view. Anything. So you're, describing your natural experience, which you don't have to defend and justify yourself. You have the right to your experiences and your feelings, but yet there is the downplaying, downcasting, and insultery of such. So that's when you begin the shut off. You begin to become, enter into your limbic brain. You're living in the fight or flight. You're not able to have that flow of thought and feeling and emotions, which you need for health and you need for function in relationships. And this is just a brief example. And there also, so then people will stay in the states for quite a long time when they're not aware of the fact that this is occurring, and then becomes the learning, the tools, perhaps what you're picking up here on the Peace and Harmony channel. Then, as you get further along your healing journey, you're becoming consciously competent, which means you have to deliberately and consistently apply and execute the skills and the tools and the detachment and getting into the observational mind that we describe here, the mindfulness. So you begin to become the no contact, the getting distance, the pulling back, the not entering into the boxing ring, entering into the metacognitive or observer mind, where you're able to become a little bit more aware, wiser, and you're not falling for the insults. You're not falling for the manipulation. You're seeing manipulation as such. You're seeing how these people are distorting and denying your reality. In other words, they're giving you the insults, yet these are the people who you inspire. It's very interesting because especially those people who are manipulative and trying to get who try to be bossy of such, the very people who then insult, derogatory, make negative comments, next thing you know, these are the people who actually you inspire. So it's the people who you tell them about what you're doing, and then next thing you know, they're doing it. So we're not going to stay too long on that phase, but it's when you become aware of the fact that, that there's a problem, you begin to, enter into no contact, or you're not entering the boxing ring. You're doing the recovery dates. You're not, you're not lashing out. You're not acting angry. You're not spending all sorts of time in anger. You're not spending all sorts of time in low self-esteem, the lower vibration. You're able to say, this person is causing oftentimes this cycle. This causing me to be a counterforce to their force. And I'm going to stop playing the game. I'm going to draw back, and I'm going to declare my boundaries and my standards. And I'm going to get perspective enough so I can see what it is that they're doing. And that you then stop attributing more of your own feeling states towards, towards them. So you're no longer feeling helpless. You're no longer participating in the same feeling states, the same B states. You're no longer, falling helpless. You're learning about what learned helplessness is. You're learning about what low self-esteem is and how it's created. You're learning about the role of dynamics of the relationships and how it is attributed and connected to where you are at in your journey. In other words, the cause, you begin to understand the cause that's created this effect. And then you begin to become neutral and indifferent to these perpetrators and violators. You're no longer idealizing them. And we're going to pick this up in this next video because the tape is running out. Please share and please subscribe.